Nobody wants to work anymore. I have heard this time and again from business leaders, but the one time that it really struck me was when I realized that it isn't that people don't want to work, it's that we have shifted in how we want to work and what we expect from our workplace. And that is leaving some old school managers and supervisors feeling like people just don't want to put in the effort. Let me tell you a little story. A few years ago, I was working with an organization who was trying to determine how many employees they needed. They wanted to make sure that people felt supported and like they were able to do their best quality work, but they needed to do it in a way that was objective and clear. And so they were going to do a time study on how long it took to get different parts of the work done. And that would help them understand how many people they needed and in what areas so that we would get the best result. Now, I was helping them in their communication, and one of the senior directors got up in front of the entire department and started rolling out the plan. He shared everything they wanted to do, how the time study would work, what they would use to collect the data, and why they wanted to build this for their staff. He did a great job in the initial presentation, but then he asked for questions, and things went off the rails a little bit. Instead of getting questions about how this would help them move forward, he got questions about what they would use to measure the time. Was this vendor the right choice? He got questions about how they would do the math to make sure that they got the right people. He got questions about the hiring process and what the actual turnover was within the team. He got frustrated almost immediately as these questions started coming in from the department. And I get it. It can be hard to have people start questioning the work that you were doing. The only thing is, they weren't actually questioning it. They were trying to understand it. They were trying to come alongside of him and be part of this overall project. He was taking this old school view of management where he just puts his arm around them and says, I am here to tell you the way. I am here to show you what we need to do and how we are going to get to this better result. Follow me. The problem isn't that people don't want to work, although he certainly felt that way when they started asking questions about the slim timers and everything that went into it. The problem instead was that people didn't want to follow. Now, again, I understand that people think that there is this epidemic on work ethic going on, but that's really just not the case. If you look at the numbers, our unemployment rates are about flat to what they were 20 ish years ago. And those people who have left the workforce and have decided to not be part of that 9 to 5, many of them have joined into a 24/7 by starting their own businesses. Where we used to see about 3.5 million businesses started each year, even as recent as 2017 and 2019, now we have 2 million more businesses started every single year. The truth is that people want to work and they want to do work that they care about with people that they care about. They also want to do that work with a high degree of autonomy. And all of that to say that people want to feel connection in their work, connection to both what they're doing, why they're doing it, and who they're doing it with. And when you, as a leader, can strongly engage your team, you'll have a group who is so energized and excited for the work that they do that they will move heaven and earth for those that they work with. Now, I know this to be true based on my experience in working with people in all sorts of different industries, from healthcare to insurance to education, even construction. But it isn't just my opinion. We see this time and again in the data. Some of the most respected data on what drives employee engagement is the Gallup employee surveys. We're talking about the Q12. Their results are respected and utilized the world over. And the questions in their survey that have the biggest impact on employee engagement speak to this connection that we're talking about. 3 of the top 5 most impactful questions on the Q12 speak directly to connection and autonomy. So let's look through those just a little bit. One of the most impactful questions in the Q12 is, at work, do you have the opportunity to do what you do best every day? If you haven't taken one of these surveys before, you get a question like that. At work, do you have the opportunity to do what you do best every day? And then you rate it on a scale. So this question invites employees to dig into the work that they do and how it connects uniquely to them. Another question with a high impact on overall engagement is, does your supervisor or someone at work seem to care about you as a person? You don't have to have a ton of insight on that one to know that it is directly speaking to your connection with others. And finally, at work, do your opinions seem to count? And that's getting at the autonomy and the involvement that people want to have in decisions, in change, in expectations. Now, the beautiful thing about this is, as the leader, as the direct supervisor, you have the biggest impact on overall engagement. I know that sounds counterintuitive because I just said that people don't want to follow anymore, but look at it this way. When Gallup does their studies, and again, these are world over studies, they have found that employee engagement is driven by 70% of the direct supervisor. Now, think about that. Even those questions about the type of work you do, and if anyone at work cares about you as a person, is 70% tied to your direct leader. Now, that means that strong leadership is the only way to get that important and connected work done. Without a leader, there's no one to prioritize the work, assigning it to that most qualified person, assigning it to the person who is uniquely connected to that work, and then fending off all of the distractions in the priorities so that that person can focus on it every day. Without a leader, there's no one to connect with each individual on the team, no one to help each person see how important their specific role is. There's no one to act as the conductor, right? When you think about an orchestra or a choir, there's no one to stand in front and highlight some voices and soften the ones that can be overpowering so that we get the most beautiful harmony. Without a leader, you don't have the clarity and the vision that you need to compete with that important work that the team is connected on and connected so strongly to. So at the heart of it, leaders organize and communicate. That is the job. That is what they're doing every single day. And it's a crucial one because as a leader, you get to connect with each individual on your team. You get to connect to the vision and help them understand their unique contribution. You get to help that talented and quiet claims adjuster share their unique way of showing compassion to an injured worker, which could change how your whole team views their initial contacts. Think about that. The quietest person on your team who is doing fantastic work and otherwise wouldn't have the voice to share it with everyone, wouldn't have the connection to feel that deep sense of respect to get everybody on board. Now, once you as the leader can rise that person up and help everybody to see how following suit would better connect them with the work that they're doing day to day and with having that autonomy to continue to, build that deep connection. If Susie has a voice, why wouldn't they, right? With time, You get those improved KPIs. You get those reduced days off of work for the injured worker. They want to get back to work because they feel like they are partnered with that adjuster. You get happier customers who then have lower premiums because you're not spending as much on those claims. That is the power of leading with what is most important to your people. Now, I know that that sounds a little bit pie in the sky, right? But that is what great leadership can do for you. We want employees who get results, and we want our teams to have that connection that has them walking through fire for each other. But how do we get there? We get there by focusing on the most critical aspects of leadership. The first piece is to be the leader that they connect with. Now, we just talked about how 70% of how engaged an employee is in their work and with that company is influenced by the direct manager. And that means that no matter what else is going on at work or who else is pouring into them or taking up time in their lives, it is you that has 70% impact. It is you. That's a lot of power. I want you to use it well. Get curious about them. Find out what drives them and what they value. Find out what they see as their biggest talents and look for ways to use those talents in their work. Now, I do want to just give you a little bit of information here because those talents can be the skills under the skills. It may not be that they can read data like a book. It may not be that they have the best customer service voice. They can have underlying talents that make them good at those things that you need to be leveraging. So, for example, I had a quality assurance specialist who was fantastic at auditing files. But it wasn't because she knew how to check all the right boxes. It was because she had a beautiful mind for envisioning exactly what happened in a claim. It was because she had this great understanding of how things mechanically worked, so she could see the actual loss that happened. And she could also put herself in people's shoes to understand how they were feeling about it. And it made her really see the whole claim, the whole picture that helped her audit really come to life. When you do that, they see you not as a boss that they have to follow, but they start to see you as a partner because they know that you're on their side. They feel that connection with you. Now, I know that I just gave an example of getting this really deep connection with the employees that are working with you. But what my clients find is they start to see those connections with employees come to life when they connect with themselves first. So, in coaching, you first understand your talents and your specific strengths and how those equip you to lead. There are always strengths that catch people off guard. There are always things in their top 5 from their strengths finder that they actually saw as weaknesses. One client was beating himself up for taking on too much. He was trying to control everything and he was wanting to have a hand in every single project that his employees were working on. But when we discovered that his top strength was arranger, it made perfect sense. He built a respect for that talent that he had himself, and it helped him to use it to lead rather than to control through the work in our coaching. Leading himself that way allowed him to show more understanding and respect for one specific member of his team who clearly had a talent for creating harmony. And those two talents were conflicting on the surface, but they could bridge the gap for both of them when my client started leading through it. So, to go back to my example with that quality assurance specialist, It may have looked like a weakness that she had because she was so focused on the overall picture instead of the black and white view of the audit. But once we started to develop that deep respect for that skill under the skill, we could help her to do that every single day and balance it out with more of that clear cut audit picture that we needed. All right, number two, I need you to clarify the vision. So we've connected with the team, which we know is so important, both in the Q12 and in creating this group of people who actually want to work with you as a leader. Next, we need to help them feel connected to the work. Your team needs to know where the work is going because they aren't intrinsically going to feel connected to phishing tests, making sales calls, or following customer service scripts. They're just not. You have to connect it for them. You have to communicate the vision of the organization and connect the work that they do to that vision. Help your employees see that they aren't just sending phishing emails. They're protecting the integrity of customer data. They're just making, insurance sales calls. They're offering the opportunity for protection in what could be the most devastating moment of their lives. It's like the story of the three Masons. You may have heard this before, but I'm going to go into it again. So imagine you are walking towards the side of a building and you see three Masons working. You come up to the first Mason and you say, "What are you doing?" And he says, "Honestly, I don't know. My back hurts, my neck hurts. All I do is stand here all day long and put down these bricks. Every single day, I put down mortar and I set down a brick. I put down mortar, I set down a brick." That's a pretty hard life, right? You walk to the next Mason. He's working on the exact same building. And you say, "What are you doing?" And he says, "Well, I'm building a better life for my family. I know that this is hard work, but it earns me a paycheck that I can bring home to my wife and my children every single day. I may even be able to change the lives of my grandchildren by what I am earning here. Every day they pay me to put down mortar and lay a brick." That's a lot better. That's a lot more motivating. You walk to the third Mason and you say, "What are you doing?" This Mason says, "I am building a cathedral. It's painful work, but I get to bring money home to my family. And even better than that, I get to be part of this building that will inspire hope for this entire community for generations to come." Now, whether you know this story by heart, and I probably misquoted a little bit of it, or this is the very first time that you've heard it, I want you to look at it through a slightly different lens. I want you to imagine that each one of these Masons had a different supervisor. One supervisor never explained why the Mason did anything. He just managed the tasks. That supervisor made sure that there was mortar and bricks for every piece of work that that man needed to do all day long. The next one connected with the Mason, right? He helped him to see what this work could do for his family, could do for him personally, to just stay there and lay the bricks. But the third one planted the most beautiful vision, the vision of what the Mason does and why he does it. He's erecting this cathedral. It's not only going to earn money for his family, and yes, it is still backbreaking work, but he gets to be part of this beacon of hope for generations to come. That is the power of connecting to the company vision. All right, the final one, connect the values. Once you've connected with the team, you've built that relationship, and you've given them a clear view of where and why the organization is going there, you have to bring them together. This is one area that I will hop on my soapbox about because this is where leaders quit trying. This is where people who have so much potential as leaders just give up and go back to micromanaging the tasks. They become the supervisor of that first mason, just making sure that the bricks and the mortar are laying there. Because it feels like the two things are in conflict, right? It feels like you're going to talk to that third mason and say, I understand that you value your family. We need you to work 15 hours a day. And that's a really hard thing to do. So let's take it out of the masons. Let's take it back to something that we might encounter today, right? We might know that our company really values fiscal responsibility. And that's great. And that's important. And so then you talk to your employees and you find out that Susie's feeling really undervalued and she wants a 15% raise. And now you are panicked because these two things feel like they're in conflict. You assume that you weren't a born leader because you can't actually connect these two things. Just like it feels difficult to connect being there for your family and working a 14, 15-hour day. Here's the thing though, being able to connect these two things, it isn't natural. It isn't a born leadership thing. Connecting the vision of the organization and personal values is not natural, but it is something you can do. It takes mastery of communication. It takes mastery of communication. Mastering communication with your employees means never having to think twice about how to motivate them to move toward that company vision because you tie it to what they are doing and their vision for themselves as effortlessly as you tie your shoes. Mastering communication means those big, scary announcements about fiscal responsibility and what that actually means on a day to day, those things that used to have you trembling at the very thought, now feel smaller and much more manageable. But it's because you've laid the foundation of where the company is going and why. Now you're just adding the bricks to build up each and every step in how you are going to get there. When you master communication, everything feels ordered and predictable. That is the very reason we spend more than half of our time in coaching focused on mastering it. So you can have that calm connection with your team that allows them to have the autonomy that they want, to do that work that they do best and have a voice in those decisions, in those change, while giving you the influence that you need. So people don't want to follow you. And honestly, if you can just get past that, you will win. Because is it harder to lead people now than it was 20 years ago? You bet. And all that means is that this group of exceptional leaders that rise to the top will be the richest cream. And when you build your leadership skills now, you become that valuable leader who can, as one client put it, work sorcery with your words. You can be ready for every opportunity that comes your way and start creating your own. If you are ready to be that type of leader, if you are ready to be the leader who can connect your employees with the vision of the company to create exceptional results that you didn't realize were possible, we need to talk. Click the link below to schedule time to understand what coaching could do for you. All right. I hope that this was helpful, and I hope that you share it with any leaders who need this information as much as you did. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the